What we feared, what NBA fans and 76ers fans feared, well, it came today. Well, that is Joel Embiid is out for the remainder of the season. Last season, Joel Embiid played in just 39 games. This year, he's played in just 19 games, 39 of the 76ers' 50 games so far. The team has a 20-38 record. The numbers have been down all season for him. It was his lowest scoring output since 2017, averaging 23.8 points per game, just 8.2 rebounds. It just has not been there. A 29.9% effective field goal percentage. Just the win shares at 1.5. He's injured. The numbers haven't looked good. And now he is going to be on the shelf for the remainder of the season. Now, the 76ers' chances of making the play-in game were bleak and making a run in the playoffs were bleak. You went out there and you signed Paul George in the offseason. You thought that a big three with Maxey and George and Joel Embiid, hey, on paper, that's not bad. That's pretty decent. But you need your MVP on the floor to have a legitimate chance. And I think at this point, it's sad. That's just the bottom line. It's not like Joel Embiid wants to be injured. He wants to be out there. He lost weight. He lost significant weight to give himself a chance. And before 76ers fans yell and say, oh, he should have been in the Olympics. Oh, he came back too early to play in that Knicks series last year. Oh, he should have gotten the surgery earlier. What surgery? There is no surgery, no medicine that regrows or replaces cartilage for a 300-pound dude. That's just not how it works. Yes, they might explore some treatments and they sound downright barbaric. Things like cartilage replacement, breaking your hip just to help your knees. Who wants to go through that? He was having to get injections just to be able to play in games this season. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that the process has failed, and it's not his fault. When he was on the court, he literally was the most valuable player, a top 5 player in the league, someone who past that was winning over fans in Philly, which is not easy to do. He epitomized that city and the way you go about and the way he played, how hard he played. This is nothing against his game. We know how talented Joel Embiid is when he plays. Unfortunately, his body is failing him. And at this point, I think, look, you look at where the contract is. They signed him to a new deal. They signed him to a deal where it was a 2-year extension with a player option for a third year in 28 and 29 this past summer. His contract is immovable this summer. You're not going to be able to do that. Even if you wanted to rebuild around Maxey and Jared McCain, you can't move his contract. But unfortunately, it looks like this car has been totaled. It really does at this point for Joel Embiid. And it hurts me to say that because I love the dude out of the Cameroon. I was hoping that he would put together a long, healthy career and compete for championships, but the knee just isn't there. And I think if you can salvage anything out of this, you're going to feel good about it. It's almost like a much, 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 much better version of what Andrew Bynum was, right? He actually did realize his potential, won an MVP. It's not like he's Greg Oden or anything like that. No, he's an all-star. He's 30. He did play a long time. But unfortunately, like I said, the car looks like it is totaled. And I think now, if you're the 76ers, instead of playing basketball games for the rest of the season, trying to compete for the playoffs, I think you try to play a game of capture the flag. How do you get Cooper Flagg with the 76ers? At this point, that's the only way to get yourself in a position to turn the page towards the future, to kind of get past what is a terrible contract in Paul George, a contract with Embiid that looks like it's not going to bear any championship fruit. And that has to be the number one priority. How do you secure the highest draft pick? How do you maintain that draft pick? And heading into Wednesday's game against the Knicks, they had a position to really sustain where they're at. I mean, they're 12th in the Eastern Conference. They're behind the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls. They're in front of just the Toronto Raptors, the Charlotte Hornets, and the Washington Wizards. And according to Tankathon, The 76ers have a 37% shot of landing a top 4 pick in the draft. Their chance of winning the lottery are currently placed at 9%, with the Hornets, Wizards, and Utah Jazz, though have the best chances at 14% at the moment. So look, the more you lose, the more chances that you have, the higher your chances of getting Cooper Flagg, of getting a higher draft pick. And that is the number one priority at this point. You got to, keep that pick, which right now they do have a 46% chance of keeping their pick, but you got to keep the pick and you want to get a higher pick. But at this point, I think if you're the 76ers, if you're basing your future around Joel Embiid, then you're spinning your wheels. You have to move on. You have to regroup, and you have to just take this loss for what it is. The process has failed. His body has failed him. But J-Rob, you hate to see this. The worst thing in sports is injuries. The worst thing in sports is injuries to players that you know are great. It's not like he's someone who came out of high school or college and never made it. The dude made it. Yeah. His body's just failing him.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a guy who won an MVP, so you know where he is at his apex. If I'm a Philadelphia fan, I'm kind of glad this is happening, though, because this puts you in a situation where if you can get a top 3 pick, I am really bullish on this draft from a standpoint of I think the guys at the top, the first 5, all have the ability to be franchise-changing level players. And what I like about it is with Embiid being out to repair this knee, if I'm the front office, I'm not rushing him back, because if I manage to get the first 2 picks, let's just say I'm being optimistic, and I have either Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper Jr., because those are, to me, consensus 1 and 2, however you shake it, or even an Ace Bailey. I will use that time with Joel Embiid getting healthy to develop those guys, because I think when Joel comes back, I don't think he's going to be the same number 1 option, but I do feel like he can be a part of a nucleus, even though he'll be past his prime, because even a 75% Embiid, whether I want to admit this or not, is better than most bigs in the NBA. Even him on a bad knee this year is better than a majority of the centers and bigs in the National Basketball Association. So when I look at that and the culmination of all those things, I don't know what's his value to other teams across the league, especially with his injury history. So if I am the front office, how am I going to really get the most out of this situation? Like maximize this to the best of my ability? Because I do agree. I think the process is over. So you have to try to pivot, but you still have Joel, and he can be a factor, maybe just not as that number 1 guy anymore.
Yeah, I think that's the most rational approach to this. I mean, look, I think that's a fantastic point in the sense that, I'm saying that the car has been totaled. The truth is you probably got to salvage that car in some capacity, right? I think he's not Greg Oden, right? I mean, people saying he's Greg Oden or anything like that. Of course he's not that. I mean, Greg Oden was drafted when he was 65 years old, right? Greg Oden, he had worse knees than my grandpa. My grandpa's been dead for 10 years, right? I mean, it's not like that, okay? If you can get and the thing is they have no choice too. From a financial standpoint, there's nowhere to go with that contract. He's beloved in the city. And you just feel bad for the guy. You just see the body language, the way he looks. But the sad thing to me in all this is that, look, there was a time when we thought we were going to talk about Joel Embiid with the Shaqs, the Duncans, the Kareems, I mean, the Wilts, the great bigs in the history of the game. Now it feels like we're going to be talking about him with the Yao Mings, the Brandon Roys, guys like that. Greg Oden's not necessarily, of course, he accomplished more than that. I think that the comp really is Bill Walton, in that Bill Walton actually won a championship and had success, and then the career just kind of fell apart. But Noel, it's a sad situation. I know that you are someone that kind of goes to the deeper meanings of the stories. With this it feels like just a story that you hope they can have a happy ending, but it's not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the NBA, he's definitely one of the most unluckiest players that I've ever seen in my time watching basketball. His career started off and he was labeled as someone that couldn't stay healthy, that just couldn't get the nucleus of actually being a big man in the NBA that could play 60, 70, 80 games. And he was able to become that. He was able to not only transcend the position, but also stay healthy and long enough on the court to make an amazing impact. And then he has teammates like Ben Simmons, James Harden, that don't really stick around in the postseason, don't stick around for multiple seasons. And he was there in the heart of Philadelphia, one of the most crucial, one of the most contradictory, one of the most hardest sports fan bases to play in front of. And he really embraced what it meant to be a superstar in that city. And just seeing how it's all playing out right now, it's really sad because he was up there with Paul George on that sports broadcast saying, hey, like, we need you over in Philly. He recruited him heavily. He got him. Paul George hasn't been the same guy. Joel Embiid, the knees are breaking down once again. I hate to see it because, Doug, I'm a big DeMarcus Cousins fan, and I feel like Joel Embiid, Boogie, Joel Embiid really took that skill set that Boogie had and just showed what he could do.
It's getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous.
That's how it feels right now to me. For real.
It's getting ridiculous.
Getting
But
ridiculous.
so I'll close our eyes though. Think of Cooper Flagg. What jersey can you think of him in? Dude, I can think of him in a Sixers jersey.
Yeah.
The Duke blue, the red.
Yeah.
I think from a league standpoint, I am sick of seeing big stars in small markets.
Yeah.
Nothing against San Antonio, nothing against Oklahoma City. Sure, they're great cities. I like my superstars in big markets. And Cooper Flagg with the 76ers kind of just hits, right? I think you look at too, just kind of, if you're a 76ers fan, I know you're probably having a bad day. I mean, call all your 76ers friends today. I mean, give them a hug. They're fine, but they're just going through it today because JoJo's out for the rest of the season. Well, if you look at the reformed lottery odds, the reformed lottery odds, look, they're in a pretty, like you said, I mean, you don't want this to happen, but the fact that they're getting some clarity right now towards the end of the season, look, Maxey and PG better either be not playing on a minutes restriction at this point, right? Because if you look at it, the three worst teams in the league all have a 14% chance of the number one pick. The team with the fourth worst record has a 12.5% chance of the first pick. And the team with the fifth worst record has a 10.5% chance. So, I mean, you just get in that mix and you just never know. Adam Silver, kind of works his magic, gets his David Stern on, and all of a sudden they capture the flag and you get Cooper Flagg.